Hey guys, Anime Princess here. It's the beginning of day 2. I've just woken up, and before I go live on Twitch, I wanted to make a video to help people transition from the end of the campaign into maps. So this is very, very cheap gear that you guys should focus on with the first few chaos you found while leveling. So the first item I have is a body armor. And by the way, all the links I have here are going to be in the description of the video. So this is a 5 link. And the way I've done this filter is to make sure there's armor and energy shield on these armor bases. And the reason I want to do this is because I think having just a baseline amount of armor, like you should aim for probably around 10,000 with your flask up if you're able to keep pressing your flask properly. Or just, at least try, if you have less than that, just be aware you probably want to have a little bit more. This is to prevent you from flopping over just in regular mapping scenarios. So it needs to have some armor, and the reason why I'm looking for energy shield bases is because our 5 link is going to have probably 3 blue sockets and then a green and a red. And if there's an energy shield component to the armor, chromatics will likely roll into blue, so it'll be easy to color the armor. These armors are not crafted, so your options are to either look for one that has decent life, preferably like okay armor value as well, or you could just scour it and craft it yourself. You could just use a Essence of Greed, although those might be out of our budget since we literally have no currency. So it might be worth, going through it. Don't worry about the colors on it. You can just chromatic that, but try and get decent armor and life if possible. The second suggestion is a unique weapon that has some downsides, but since we have no currency, I think these downsides are actually pretty worthwhile and we can overcome them. So Singularity, let's go over the strengths. It has a lot of added damage to spells. It has decent cast speed, and it has a lot of increased damage, which is the same as like increased spell damage. However, the downside is this increased damage has a caveat where you need to have enemies be hindered, and we automatically hinder enemies, but only enemies that are nearby. So you might be wondering, what does nearby mean? Because that's a little confusing. Nearby means different things for different items. For the Singularity item, it means a radius of 35. So I want to give a visual representation of this. This circle around the witch right here is a radius of 30. And a radius of 35 is the next thing out. So right here where my cursor is, that is the radius of 35. So when you're wielding a Singularity, that 100% increased damage only affects monsters basically that you're like on top of, which means you're going to have to put yourself danger close all the time. However, you're going to have a lot of damage, which is important in early mapping. What I've been doing personally, since I finished the campaign with no currency, just like you guys, I bought 2 Singularities for 2 chaos each. So I'm dual wielding Singularities. I don't even have a shield. And that means we're still using a leap slam, and I'm leap slamming onto enemies and blowing them up like probably 3 times faster than I would if I was just using a really cheap rare weapon. So this is really good first few days of the league when not a lot of rare weapons have dropped. However, if you're watching this further into the league, it's worth checking out my other video in the Spark playlist. I think it's called like a budget of 1 to 3 divines, because that has a link to rare weapons that would probably be similar power level to this, maybe a little bit worse, but you can off screen, and off screening feels really good. This is a compromise that is just early in the league because really good value for money. And since this weapon is putting us in such danger, my next suggestion would be to buy a helmet that has high armor value. Now, people will have different opinions on how much armor you need in maps. I think, here, let's look at my character. Right now, I have 7,000 armor, and when I press my flask, I have 9,000 armor. I think 10,000 armor in the first few days of the league is a pretty good goal to reach. And the way to do it is, obviously you need an armor helmet because you can get a lot of armor on a helmet. So this is a search for a helmet that has a bunch of armor and also life. You can also craft these yourself. I crafted my own helmet. I just knew like what bases have default pretty high armor. In the ideal scenario, you're going to buy one of these that also has an open suffix, because one of the biggest power spikes is to have the helmet craft, socketed spells, focus, or cast socketed spells. I forget exactly what it's called. This in some of the videos in the playlist, but I don't have that craft yet because you need to get it from June. But once you get the craft, or once you have a friend that has the craft that can craft it on you, you need a suffix for that. So scrolling through here, if you want a future proof, I would make sure there's an open suffix. As you can see, you can get really high armor and decent life. It's under 1 chaos orb. So that's why I'm including this. This is just super budget way to get a little bit extra armor. And the last thing I want to talk about is a decent amulet, because you're probably not going to have a great amulet coming out of the campaign, and you can spend 1 chaos orb and get a lot of power on the amulet. So let's look into the search criteria here. Again, we're looking for life. You're going to want to have life on all your gear. And we're looking for 2 good damage stats. So we can get cast speed, spell damage, crit multi, and +1 to level of the gem. And we can get 2 good damage stats as well as life for literally 1 chaos. So all of these are super cheap. This is like 1 chaos, another chaos, 2 chaos. You're going to spend 4 chaos on 2 of these singularities. And by the way, my filter is filtering for the ones with the high rolls. So if you buy a worse singularity, maybe it's 1 chaos. I don't know. But I would buy one with decent rolls. If decent rolls is 2 chaos. So now we're at 6 chaos, and then a body armor 5 link is like 2 chaos. That's 8 chaos. Let's go over my character as well, now that I have you guys here. So I've talked about the scepters, the body armor, the helmet, the amulet. Call of the Brotherhood is pretty expensive. What is this, like 15 to 20 C? So it's more than twice as much as all the other pieces. So this is going to come later on. It is nice though, especially since we're going to be leap slamming into enemies in the early game. This is just going to freeze and chill them, so it's going to make us even more tanky. But obviously don't get this beforehand. My other 4 pieces, they're actually really bad. They drop during the campaign. These are just self-drops before I hit maps, so I'll have to probably improve those to have higher life values, just more stuff on them. Just make sure you're res capped, get what you need to. As far as my auras go, I'm running Zealotry and Determination, which is really important. You know, I'm just too lazy to press my mana flask, so I'm running Clarity. It's not important though. My guys suggest Tempest Shield, but again, like I'm not using a shield. I think in white, yellow maps, we can get away with this sort of greed. Just pump out the DPS. It'll feel really good. Now the helmet, we really want a suffix with the focus craft on it. If you've watched my playlist, you sort of know about that. My helmet does not have that because I have not found the focus craft yet. And today, that's going to be my goal, because we want to have Life Tap, Tornado, Sigil of Power, Frost Shield all together in the helmet. So you press one button and all 3 of them get instantly cast. It's a massive power spike. But we don't have that. As far as my gems, I want to talk about Cast from Damage Taken, Molten Shell. This is the important defensive layer. If you don't have this, you're going to fall over in maps. Now, my Cast from Damage Taken is level 7. My Molten Shell is level 13. That's one of the sweet points. But when you are doing your own, you don't need to have these 2 levels. You just have to make sure cast for damage taken requires level, and then for mine it says 50, and that just means your other skill, in this case Molten Shell, needs to be under level 50. So mine is level 48, and the higher the level of the Molten Shell, the better. So I think if I level this one more time, it goes up to 51 or 52, which means, yeah, it says right down there, requires level 52 for next level. So for me, I can't level this higher unless I want cast with damage taken to be higher. But I'm not sure if I want that, so I'm just leaving it like this. As for my damage link, I have Spark, increased critical strike support because I switched off of the EO. We have Pierce, Inspiration, Spell Echo. So you can see here, don't have Elemental Overload, and I don't have the Lightning Mastery that we use through leveling either. Everything else on here is just very, very not too interesting. I don't have the Orb of Storm set up. It would be okay to use it. I don't think it's necessarily important. I didn't want to recolor everything to fit that in. You know, Arcane Surge, Flame Dash. We have the auras, Sniper's Mark. It really sucks that I'm having to cast all 3 of these, but you know, until we get the helmet, gonna have to suffer. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. So I will see you guys shortly on Twitch. You guys had a good first day of the league, and hopefully you guys have good luck today as well. All right, catch you guys later.